Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we have a bit of maintenance work to do. I have here my Cattleya walkerianas. So these are two plants actually in one pot. I'll just refer to them as the Cattleya walkeriana singular because I'll just probably pot them up together again. This pot is really my pride and joy, the crown jewel of my collection. Even though I have not seen it in bloom yet, one of these two plants was attempting to bloom this spring, which I'm super happy about. And now this plant that actually tried to bloom in spring has more or less completed 2 growths and is working on 2 more growths already. It started to split up into 2 directions of growth, and I feel like we might get at least 1 more growth out this summer, which is super exciting. And as you can see, it's slowly climbing outside of the pot, and I know that more experienced growers like Steven and Campbell would just put a pot here and have the plant crawl into the new container. I just don't have really the setup for that. Don't have the space to put a second pot. I will probably just try to do a very soft repot, take it out of this container and put it into a new one. And to this end, I have already soaked this plant now for a few hours in just some RO water with fertilizer to really hydrate all of the roots, and hopefully I can manage to pot it into the new container without too much of a hassle and also without destroying the roots too much. I should have done this a few weeks ago when these roots were all still a little shorter, but I just didn't have the time. And now slowly I can really start continuing with the orchid maintenance that was really overdue for several other plants as well. Yeah, I'm just gonna try to squeeze the pot a little bit to loosen up the roots. I don't know if you can hear, you can hear the roots kind of detaching from the pot. That's a good sign, I guess. And yeah, let's hope for the best, right? So yeah, as I said, there are 2 different plants in here. This is the one that's a little more vigorous and more advanced, the one that also attempted to bloom. And then this one on this side is a little slower. That has produced only 1 growth so far this year. Maybe there is going to be a second one, but this plant is really a superstar. Oof, this plant is very pot bound. I really don't want to damage the rhizome at all because I feel like for this walkeriana, the space between the pseudobulbs is pretty big, so it's very likely that I accidentally break off some pseudobulbs maybe if I'm not careful, so have to be as slow and as patient as possible, which is very difficult. Okay, there we go. Now we have it out of the pot. Yeah, so this is kind of what we're working with. There are lots of roots in here, which I'm not going to complain about. I have done my typical, sphagnum moss on the bottom, and it looks like the roots did not really appreciate that as much. So for sure, now that I changed the media, I'm not going to give it any moss. It's going to stay in just bark. I have premium bark in sizes 3 and 4 by Equagenera Europe, formerly known as Orchideen. And I really like that for these more drought-resistant Cattleyas. And for sure, I feel like if there are bark pieces stuck to roots and these pieces seem still very intact, I'm not gonna remove them because I really noticed that while they like to get watered a lot, the roots really like to be in air. And so I'm really surprised also it's so dry in my apartment, but most of these aerial roots just stay alive. So this really shows me how much drought they can really tolerate. So I've had this plant for 2 years now, and I've always just kind of potted it into a bigger container. I've never really gone inside to get rid of any of the bark that might not be super good quality anymore. So I feel like this might just take a little while now, where I'm just trying to pick out these bark pieces, and there you can see in the inside there's a lot of root material that's just kind of dead, so for sure I'm gonna have to clean up the inside here as well. And yeah, I guess I'm just gonna speed through that because it's really boring to sit and watch that. I guess it's for sure very boring to do. I'm gonna try to be as careful with it as I can be within the constraints of my patience. And these constraints are rather limited, let's just put it that way. Yep, there you can see the inside of the media is really decomposing. There's just some, I found some bark with mold on it. So I guess it's a really good thing that I'm changing the media now, especially before it's going into winter, where I guess the chances for root rot are always a little higher in my climate. And yeah, I mean, most of the roots, like there are some good roots down here, but I feel like most of them are really rather papery. Yeah, and you can see now, I don't know if this is gonna show up, but these roots here are really from these older Bach bulbs. There seems to be still a little bit of substance in them. If I press on them, they're not completely mushy or papery, but I'm just wondering how much these roots are really contributing to the overall hydration of the plant. If they're good, I might try to conserve them. I changed a few things also about the culture. I used to have it just sit on my normal bench, but now it's hanging and it's actually closer to the light. And I feel like ever since I did that earlier this year, it suddenly really jump-started to grow faster. So right now it's really being blasted by the artificial lights I use. And yeah, I think it's really enjoying that. I was a little worried in the beginning that maybe it's gonna be too much, but I think this could probably take even a little bit more light, right? Like the leaves, there is no sign of burning or anything on them at all. They don't even show any major pigmentation on the pseudobulbs. Like the sheaths, yes, but the pseudobulbs, they are just a little freckled. So that tells me, you know, maybe they could take actually more light. And I think, you know, obviously actual direct sunlight is going to be so much stronger than anything the artificial lights I have can provide. But yeah, I think, you know, once maybe I have a different setup, you know, once maybe I move, I have maybe a more permanent housing situation, I could really see these plants thrive in a greenhouse or like a conservatory where they get actual sunlight, maybe in the morning or something, and I think they would really love that and it would push them even further. And yeah, so now I'm kind of down here trying to get the moss out. You can see many of these roots are just like dead. So yeah, I think having a cleanup for this plant now after 2 years of just constantly being put into bigger containers without really cleaning the inside, it's really necessary. And yeah, there you go. I think this might be the case for quite a few other plants in my collection that just have been put into bigger pots. Like also Paphiopedilum, I'd have to do the annual Miltoniopsis repot and clean up. Maybe the Psychopsis that lives in pure sphagnum. I think that could take a lot of love as well. And you can see it's really hot right now. It's 8 p.m. today and it's still over 34 degrees in my flat. Right, I live right underneath the roof, so there's a lot of heat. And I think also this helps these Cattleyas a lot. Like the Dowiana, the Rex, the walkeriana, the nobilior, they really love it when it's summer here and temperatures are just really high. You can really see they get much brighter, they grow faster, and so on. And I don't blame them for that at all, right? That's, I guess, where they're from after all, right? Here you can also see kind of the old roots were following the pot that it was in before. I guess that really shows you that the inside here, probably every person who actually knows anything about growing Cattleyas is sitting at home yelling at the screen, "What are you doing there, boy?" Oof, problematic. But you know, this is the only way you learn, by making mistakes or, you know, and then gaining your own experience. Like, don't forget that I've only been growing these Cattleya species since 2020. So it's been now roughly 2 years, and this walkeriana was actually one of the first plants I ordered from Schwerter Orchideen back in the day, which literally has been 2 years, maybe a little over 2 years. So yeah, I went for, I guess, the difficult and expert plants right away. Right, first plant was the Miltoniopsis, which is not easy to take care of for many people either. And yeah, I feel like I'm really lucky. I did not expect these plants to survive in my collection. I just got them, I was like, let's see what I can do with these. Let's see if they survive, let's see what happens. And I guess it was pretty good after all. Beginner's luck is what they call that, huh? I'm not gonna lie, I almost kind of want to just cut off the bottom here because it's really, really entangled. And as I said, there are really good roots here, but many of them just feel like overboiled macaroni. So yeah, difficult decisions to be made today in the By Nature household. So yeah, the top layer is pretty much all new bark, and this plant moved into this bark, I want to say in spring-ish. So I am definitely tempted to keep that bark there. Probably these older roots are gonna drop anyways, right? Like now that they've been handled by me, they're probably gonna die off anyways, right? But yeah, I can definitely say the sphagnum moss, this plant really hates that. I have other plants that really love the moss in their mix, like the purpuratas. I've noticed they really like their roots to grow in the moss actually. Also, I feel like the Cattleya rex is very much of the opinion that moss is just absolutely necessary in the grow mix. But I guess the walkeriana is more of the opinion that, you know, air is better than water. Funny because it still kind of calls out to me sometimes. It's like, come on, just give me a little sip. So I guess divas do have their demands. Yeah, I don't know, I feel like the setup of the video also wasn't probably the smartest because you can't really see anything I'm doing, but it's not like, I don't know, I feel like my audience is not people that don't grow orchids. I feel like from what I see in the comments and everything, everyone has their plants, everyone is growing themselves. Like my audience is not people that need to see a tutorial on stuff, and it would also be really rich to offer a repot tutorial, you know, at my stage of experience. So, right, I mean, you have all repotted your fair share of plants, I guess. Maybe the only reason why it would be nice for you to see what I'm doing is to give me feedback and say, hey, maybe change this or maybe do this differently. Right, I guess there's like a niche for everyone on social media, and I feel like my niche is the like make sassy comments about plants and kind of maybe down low sexualizes growing plants. So I feel like I'm hitting a nerve here. Okay, I feel like this is as much cleanup as I want to provide media-wise. I'm just going through, there are some really nice branching roots in here that obviously I want to retain those, or I guess maintain, preserve, whatever the correct verb is. Like native speakers, leave a comment down below. And yeah, then others, you can see these ones are just like dead, so I will cut those off. And just to also keep the pot cleaner longer, but I feel like most of the dead roots were really on the bottom of the pot. Here on the inside there are a few, but honestly if I squeeze them, now that I really went through them, many of them are still okay, it seems. Like, that's really weird to me that they would be good, but I feel like some of them are kind of on their way out, right? Like You can see they're not really greening up, they're brown, but they're still turgid. What should I do? Maybe I should just remove them, right? They're not gonna make it into the new media anyways. Right? And these are all, as I said, like these ones, these are all roots coming from the older bulbs anyways. And as you can see, these old bulbs are super shriveled anyway, so I don't think the plant is going to really rely on these roots anyways. Just gonna cut them. And if they want to, they can branch. And if they don't want to, I'm not gonna force them to. Right? I think they're gonna be nice just to kind of anchor the older parts of the plants. But it's not like they really need to be super anchored, right? Should I take off these older bulbs? I think it would be nice to keep them on just to see the size progression. And I guess like, this is the pot I want to get it into. I guess there would be enough space for them. So maybe I'll just leave them on, just for good old time's sake. So this root here, for example, it has like a dead part here, but it's branching on top there, so I'm definitely gonna keep that and just remove the dead side of it, you know, the zombie part. Same here, I guess, like there is a little death happening down there, like these seem all a bit too squishy for what I like to see, but then it seems to be fine up until here, so I'll just keep that on as well. I try to soak this root here as well to make it a little more pliable so it can get into the media. And so right now I'm hoping to train them to grow in this direction. I don't know, I feel like depending on how realistically, I think it's probably better to separate these plants because otherwise this pot is going to be full with roots, or like it's going to grow until the edge very quickly again, and I kind of don't want that. But honestly, the plant is really, or they're really connected by all the new roots, so that's a little unfortunate, I guess. Because right, if I put it in here, I'm gonna have to repot it, or like pot it up maybe next year or the year after, depending on how much growth we get. That's dumb. Yay, I separated them. This was a little bit more stressful than I was hoping it would be. It's really annoying. These plants have extremely shallow root systems, right? They don't need a deep pot, they just need space for the rhizome to grow into, and I feel like this plant, honestly, I could just put this in here on its own and it would probably fill up the pot very quickly with the new growth directions and everything. So that's probably what I'm gonna do now. So I'm just using my bark by Michael Kors. You can see it's super mega coarse. So yeah, I wish there were more pots available that are more shallow. Cattleyas, especially this walkeriana, I think having any pot that is deep is just a complete waste and absolutely not necessary at all. Do you know what I mean? Ridiculous. So there you go, this is what the bigger plant looks like now. Just in this nice pot. Really happy with the setup right now, and I hope it's gonna just continue growing really well. Right, there are really nice new roots that are hopefully gonna continue providing the plant with a lot of hydration, and like I feel like there is already something swelling here, so maybe we're gonna see a new growth coming, and then that usually also brings new roots. Yeah, this is just such a waste, right? Like this plant, it needs the diameter of the pot, which is not the depth at all. So yeah, I don't know, maybe I can just like save some space by putting this extra pot in there, because just, you know, I'd be putting so much media in there and it's just such a waste. And also maybe it's gonna stay wet for much longer than I would like it to, now that this plant would live in there alone. So yeah, maybe this was a good idea. And I'm trying to kind of hold the plant back as much as possible so I can really use up all the space that this pot has to offer. And yeah, other than that, like, can some of the bigger orchid YouTubers please have a collaboration with some brand to make more pots available that are shallow, like also for bulbophyllums, you know, and so on. I think many of these plants with rhizomes, or like even better example would be this Coleogeny that I just recently received from Petal Sepals and Spines. Like, look at that rhizome. How is, like, what? So stupid. Like, this pot, like, complete nightmare to plant this. But like, we need more shallow pots on the market. And for this one, I put it this way because I feel like there is something swelling on this side, maybe. So yeah, I hope it doesn't grow into this direction, because then I'm like, what are you even doing? But it seems like the eye that's sprouting next should be on this side. So yeah, there you go. I made a major mess, but I cleaned up these two plants. It was really necessary. There was a lot of decay in the media in there, so definitely 2 years is the time to change media, I guess, under my condition. Certainly with the Schwerter bark that I used to use before, I feel like this bark here is much more solid. I don't know if you can hear this. It's very, I feel like this should withstand the elements a little longer. And yeah, read me for filth in the comments about all the mistakes I made. I guess I just, you know, you live and you learn, and this is just what I have to go through. And I guess if you're watching this channel, you have to go through it as well. Thanks a lot for going through it with me. There you see Cattleya walkeriana plant number 1, a month after repot. Obviously, I had to add a little bit of sphagnum moss because that's just what I do. I wanted the new roots that are coming out to encounter a little bit more of a hydrated area. You can see here this root where it was kinked kind of died off, but there are so many more new roots coming that I'm not really worried about this plant. What I really enjoy is that it started to produce yet another direction of growth. So there is a new pseudobulb being formed. And as you can see here, this little node that's swelling is also kind of continuing. I'm really happy with this. And it looks like this plant has not really lost its momentum, but at the same time, something I didn't mention in the original repotting video is the bulbs are very thin, right? They used to be much thicker and plumper. I feel like all of the new growths that this plant started have kind of maybe exhausted it almost a little bit. So I'm really hoping that, you know, it will kind of start to rest a little bit. You know, after maturing all of these growths, maybe just take a little bit of a break, refill the storage organs, and then let's see if we can continue. But yeah, it's a very good plant. And something else I noticed is up here, there's almost like a little something there. Like there was a little growth emerging, almost seemed like a little bud in a flower spike. So that is peculiar, right? Because walkerianas produce their flower spikes from the base of the pseudobulbs usually, so I'm not sure what's happening there. And then, I don't know, just have a quick look at the rest of the kind of older plants in the collection. Here, this is Cattleya walkeriana plant number 2, a month after the repot. Again, today was watering day, so everything's a bit humid. And here, this is kind of the swelling I was talking about in the repot. You can really see that there is something happening. Maybe there is going to be another growth coming, But for sure what you can also see is, yes, these back bulbs are not super mega plump anymore, but they're definitely thicker than the other plant. I think this plant here managed its resources maybe a little better than the other one. But yeah, here as well, something that I'm also trying to maintain with the sphagnum moss is a little branching root that's coming out, so that's always nice. And yeah, I've been mentioning the Cattleya Rex a little bit in the video. I don't know, I really like the Cattleya Rex, I'm super proud of it. And there in the back, maybe you've already spotted it, is a little flower coming from my Laelia sanguiloba. This is the first rupicolous Laelia blooming in my collection, so I'm super excited about that. Here you can see some of the cacti that I was sent from Post-repot and Spines. They're a bit dry, but you know, we're working on that. And then over here, behind the Dawiana that I've also mentioned in the video, there are actually my two Cattleya nobiliors that I've mentioned. They're not getting as much light as they might enjoy, but this one started to get a bit burned. They used to be up here where now the cacti are, getting a lot of light. And this plant here on the right could take it, but this one on the left was like, maybe not. Same for actually my Cattleya bicolor semi-hour. You can see that leaf is a little bit blistered. I don't know, I thought this one might really enjoy a lot of light, and the new growth is not harmed at all, but the older growth, yeah, it's a bit fried. But you know, you live and you learn, and I guess I learned that Cattleya bicolor does not want to be super blasted with light. And I don't know, this is kind of turning into a bit of an updates video. This is my Cattleya persevaliana that is maturing 2 new growths. As you can see, this leaf just recently split open, and I don't know, there are these weird sap stains, so ew, I guess. And yeah, there you go. These are kind of my slightly bigger Cattleyas, and I'm really hoping that this walkeriana is going to attempt for a second time to bloom. I think with all of the new growth that it's been producing, there is a good chance, but on the other hand, it's been disturbed now, so it may take a little bit of a rest now, but yeah, let's see. Really excited. Woohoo! And until next time, see you later.